Heyo, it's Swiggs. We've got either amazing news or snooze news, depending on who's hearing this. We've just unpacked our latest comm link for this month, and the next patch has been slated for the end of June or early this July. This patch will be a fairly standard iteration of what we've already seen, with a few tweaks and balances coming along with it. But also, a brand new condition, Elite Resistance, will be included. This condition will promise a more concentrated threat with less enemies, but those present being especially powerful. I imagine this will probably look like a match of oops all Ogryns with possibly a higher chance for Monstrosities to spawn, but that'll have to wait until we get more information to really confirm what the actual effect of this modifier will be. But the big news today is that following this patch will be the release of crossplay for Darktide. And this stands to be about as impactful to my gameplay experience as the full release of crafting or when Fatshark expanded our armoury. Just to realize why this is so impactful, it's important to understand that Game Pass servers are undeniably dying at this moment, and that is not really hyperbolic to say. From launch we did enjoy fairly stable queues, but many players followed the pattern of setting up camp within Malice since it was less risky and more efficient to grind their time in. This left Heresy being a pretty rare mode to be able to queue up on, and Damnation was a complete ghost town. This was eventually alleviated when Plasteel and Diamantine pulls were increased and incentivized players to explore higher difficulties, and people finally made that shift from Malice as the default to Heresy. But because of our smaller starting stock and burnout from grinding those lower difficulties, there simply weren't enough players that had stuck around to also progress into Damnation. The few that did try to move up were often being queued into games filled with only bots, their only hope being another queuing player would arrive before their entrails were promptly removed and they'd have even an inkling chance to actually play the match. This made queuing up to Damnation almost feel like a punishment for trying, which only served to scare more people off the mode and eventually burn them out of lower difficulties as a whole from just sheer boredom. This has only gotten worse, and it feels like you have to master the schedules of random strangers just to know when to try to queue up without accidentally solo queuing into a lobby full of pure bots. Since these players on your server, they rarely get to even play Damnation, so you'll also have to hope the queue you finally enter even has people who are comfortable and can hold their own on this difficulty. Not to mention if you're using quick play and accidentally enter a high intensity match with inexperienced players. This crossplay reveal is not just going to free current Game Pass players from this interminable hell, but also bring back previous Game Pass players that didn't want to just grind Malice and Heresy and gave up trying to find a greater challenge. While this won't be a massive spike in player counts, the fact that an entire block of people who purchase the game will have the right to enjoy it as much as those who bought it from another store is well enough for me. Fatshark also provided some communication on potential changes coming towards perk and blessing locks on weapons. They're being purposely dodgy right now since there isn't a definitive plan yet, and for now they're simply addressing it as something they're actively investigating. This does bode well though for it eventually being addressed down the line. There are some naysayers that think this is just Fatshark kicking the can down the road forever, but I feel like this was the same perspective people shared with crafting, believing that Fatshark would never deliver on their promise then. And while it did take some time, it was still earnestly developed on. And while I completely understand being miffed that weapons have these locks in the first place, I wouldn't go as far to say that this will never be addressed, and I remain optimistic of a better weapon system being introduced once they've had enough time to figure it out. And finally, we've been given confirmation that the console release of Darktide is still actually being actively developed. We don't get any information on when we can expect this to arrive, but the fact that it's being addressed at all is a good sign that it's something that is on their mind and within their active content plan for the game. Well, that's it for this video. If you liked the video, drop a like, comment if I missed anything, and have a great day. See ya!